The cry in the wasteland. The sun had just disappeared behind the dusty red hills of the wasteland planet called Verox 9. Cold winds howled across the dry land, carrying dust and small bits of metal. Nothing lived here anymore, only bones, wreckage, and silence. But today, that silence broke. Ree was walking alone through the broken remains of an old battle zone. He wore a thick brown coat and had a large metal backpack. His boots crunched over dry sand and shattered glass. He was a scavenger, someone who searched for old tech and sold it for food. Ree had been on this planet for 2 years now. He didn't talk much. He didn't smile. He worked alone, lived alone, and never expected anything to surprise him. But tonight, something did. As he walked past a burned-out tank, Ree suddenly stopped, his head tilted. He thought he heard something, a sound too soft for machines. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't metal. It was a cry. Ree held his breath. Again, the sound came, a weak, broken cry like a small child calling for help, but it didn't sound human. Ree slowly reached for his plasma pistol. He crouched low and followed the sound. Every step he took was careful. His heart beat faster. He had heard stories about traps, pirates using fake cries to lure scavengers into ambushes. But this cry didn't sound fake. It sounded real. It sounded like pain. Behind a fallen ship, he finally saw her, a girl, young, small, lying on her side in the dirt, barely moving. She was thin, her body covered in bruises and dust. Her skin had a soft purple glow, alien. Her long silver hair was tangled and messy. She wore nothing, not even a blanket. Her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, trying to hide herself from the cold. She looked up at Ree with wide, scared eyes. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Her eyes were full of fear and, worse, shame. Ree's heart sank. She wasn't a threat. She was a victim. He slowly put away his weapon and took off his coat. Without saying a word, he walked forward and gently covered her with it. She flinched as if expecting pain. "It's okay," Ree said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't answer. She just looked at him, confused and afraid. Ree could see that her feet were bleeding. Her hands had small cuts. She must have walked a long way. Maybe she had escaped from somewhere. Maybe she was left here to die. Ree looked around. There were no other footsteps, no broken chains. Just her, lying in the dirt like forgotten trash. He knelt beside her. "I'm taking you somewhere warm," he said. She didn't respond, but she didn't resist either. Ree gently lifted her in his arms. She was so light. It hurt to feel, like she hadn't eaten in days. As he carried her back toward his shelter, the wind grew colder. The stars began to appear above. The night on Verox 9 was deadly if you weren't prepared. She wouldn't have lasted another hour out here. The girl who wouldn't speak. When they reached Ree's underground hideout, a small bunker he had dug beneath the remains of an old shuttle, he laid her gently on a warm blanket. He turned on a small heater and placed a water bottle near her lips. "Drink," he said. She didn't move at first. Then slowly, with shaking hands, she took the bottle. She drank as if it was her first sip of water in days. Her lips were cracked. Her hands were trembling. Ree sat beside her, not too close. He didn't ask any questions. Not yet. He just watched, making sure she was okay. After a while, she looked at him again. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why help?" Ree blinked. It was the first word she had spoken. Her accent was heavy. Her eyes showed that she truly didn't understand. Ree gave a small smile. "Because no one helped me once," he replied. "And I remember what that felt like." She looked at him a moment longer, then slowly her eyes closed. She fell into sleep, safe, warm, and no longer alone. Ree looked at her sleeping form. He still didn't know who she was, where she came from, or what horrors she had faced. But something inside him knew this wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something much bigger. And Ree had already made his choice. He would protect her, no matter what. The next morning on Verox 9 was cold and quiet. Thin beams of sunlight broke through the cracks in the broken ceiling of Ree's underground shelter. The small heater hummed softly, and the air inside was warmer than outside, but it still carried the feeling of tension. Ree sat on a metal crate near the heater, watching the alien girl sleep. She hadn't moved much all night, only turning once with a small whimper. She clutched his coat tightly like it was her last piece of safety. He hadn't slept at all. His mind kept asking questions. Who was she? Why was she out there, naked, alone, and bruised? And most of all, who had hurt her? When her eyes finally opened, she didn't scream. She just blinked slowly, looking around like a cornered animal. Her body stiffened as she saw Ree sitting there. Her fingers tightened around the coat. "It's all right," he said gently. "You're safe here." She didn't answer. Her purple eyes just stared at him, silent and unreadable. Ree stood and placed a tray on the ground, a piece of flatbread, some dried fruits, and clean water. Simple food. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. She didn't touch it. Ree sat down again, not too close, and spoke softly. "You don't have to talk, but you need to eat." Still nothing. She looked down, her silver hair falling like a curtain across her face. Her hands pulled the coat tighter around herself. It was like she wanted to disappear. Then Ree noticed something: her arms, her neck, her legs all had small faded rings. Thin scars that looked like they were made by tight metal cuffs. Ree's eyes narrowed. Those were restraint marks. Someone had kept her prisoner. Trust and secrets. For 3 days, the alien girl barely spoke. She ate small amounts of food when Ree wasn't looking. She slept in short, troubled bursts. When awake, she would sit with her back against the wall, watching Ree with cautious eyes. On the 4th day, Ree returned from scavenging with a tattered jumpsuit. He placed it near her without a word and turned away, giving her privacy. When he looked back, she had put it on. It was too large, but better than just his coat. "Thank you," she whispered. The words were so quiet Ree almost missed them. He nodded and sat across from her. "My name is Ree." She hesitated, then touched her chest. "Nara." Progress, Ree thought. Her name was Nara. That night, as Ree worked on fixing an old communications device, Nara spoke again. "They took me from my home." Ree's hands went still, but he didn't look up. He feared she would stop talking if he showed too much reaction. "My people, peaceful. We heal." They wanted that. For soldiers. Her words were fragmented, difficult. "Made us, experiments." Ree felt a cold anger building in his chest. "Who?" he asked softly. "The Syndicate." Even saying the name seemed to cause her pain. Ree knew them. Everyone did. A powerful criminal organization that operated across multiple systems. They dealt in weapons, drugs, and apparently, people. "I escaped. Ship crashed." She gestured vaguely outside. "Others, not make it." "How many of your people did they take?" "Many." Her eyes grew distant. "Family. Friends. All gone." Ree set down his tools. He walked to a shelf and returned with a small metal box. From it, he took out a worn holographic photo, a woman and a young boy, smiling. "My wife. My son." He placed it between them. "Raiders came to our mining colony 5 years ago. I was away. When I returned." He didn't finish. Nara's eyes met his. For the first time, there was something besides fear in them. Understanding. A shared pain. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out. Her fingers hovered near his hand, not quite touching. A gesture of comfort. "You survive," she said. Ree nodded. "Yes. And now you will too." That night, Nara slept without nightmares for the first time. And Ree began to plan. The Syndicate would come looking for their escaped property. And when they did, he would be ready. The hunters arrive. A week passed. Nara grew stronger. Her speech improved as she practiced with Ree. He taught her to identify valuable scrap. She showed him how her people's touch could heal minor wounds, a soft purple glow emanating from her fingertips. "My people never use this to harm," she explained as she closed a cut on Ree's hand. Syndicate wanted weapons. "Make us heal their soldiers, then send back to fight." Ree understood now why they'd want her kind. An army with healers would be unstoppable. On the 8th day, as they returned from scavenging, Ree froze at the entrance to their hideout. Boot prints in the dust. Fresh ones. Inside. "Quick," he whispered to Nara. They slipped into a hidden compartment beneath the floor, a last resort hiding place Ree had built years ago. Through small cracks, they could see into the main room. 3 men entered the shelter. Their black uniforms bore the red insignia of the Syndicate. The leader, a tall man with a cybernetic eye, scanned the room. "The alien was definitely here," he said. "Tracker shows her biosignature." Nara trembled beside Ree. He placed a steadying hand on her arm. "Spread out," the leader ordered. "Find her. Remember, the doctor wants her alive. The others, dispose of them." The men began searching, tearing apart Ree's few possessions. One came dangerously close to their hiding spot. Ree slowly reached for his plasma pistol. If they were discovered, he would fight, but they would be outnumbered. The searcher's boot stepped on the edge of the hidden door. Ree held his breath. Nara's eyes closed in terror. Then, a sound outside, a metal container falling over. The wind, perhaps, or a scavenger animal. "Check that," the leader ordered. The man moved away from their hiding spot. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the leader spoke again. "She's not here, but she's close. Set the trackers. We'll find her by morning." The men left, planting small devices around the shelter as they went. When they were gone, Ree and Nara emerged from hiding. "Trackers," Ree said grimly, gathering the small blinking devices. "They can detect your unique biology." Nara's face fell. "Cannot hide." "Yes, we can." Ree crushed the trackers under his boot. "But we can't stay here." He gathered essential supplies, water, food, weapons. "I know somewhere. It's far. Underground tunnels from the old mining operations. The rock formations block signals." "They will follow," Nara said. Ree checked his pistol's charge. "Let them try." As night fell, they slipped away from the shelter, 2 shadows moving across the wasteland. Behind them, the rising dust clouds on the horizon showed the Syndicate forces were already on the move. Freedom's price. The deep mines of Verox 9 were ancient labyrinths carved by the planet's original settlers. Abandoned for decades, they were now home only to darkness and echoes. Ree led Nara through narrow passages, his portable light casting long shadows on the walls. The air was stale but breathable. Most importantly, they were hidden. "Here," Ree said, reaching a large chamber with multiple exits. "We rest." As Nara sat against the wall, Ree checked his communications device, the one he'd been repairing. It wasn't much, but it might reach the nearest outpost. "If we contact the Planetary Alliance," he explained, "they might help. The Syndicate has prices on their heads in 3 systems. Nara looked doubtful. My people asked Alliance for help before. They did nothing. Ree nodded grimly. Politics and profit always seem to matter more than people. Then we find another way. As they spoke, a faint rumble shook the tunnel. They're using ground-penetrating scanners, Ree realized. Looking for cavities in the rock. Nara's face hardened with resolve. I will not go back. No, Ree agreed. You won't. He worked through the night, modifying his scavenging tools and weapons. Nara watched, learning quickly, helping where she could. My people create, she said softly as she handed him tools. Never destroy. But Syndicate taught me much about destruction. By morning, they had a plan. The Syndicate forces found the mine entrance by midday. Their leader, confident in his superior numbers and technology, ordered his men inside. Flush them out, he commanded. Remember, the alien is valuable. The man is nothing. They advanced into the darkness, weapons ready, scanners beeping softly. Deep in the mines, Ree and Nara waited. They had prepared the tunnels with traps, not to kill, but to separate and confuse. The first squad triggered a cave-in, isolating them from their comrades. The second found themselves lost in a maze of identical passages. And the leader, pushing ahead with his two best men, walked straight into an ambush. Ree's modified plasma charge temporarily disabled their weapons. Nara emerged from the shadows, her purple skin glowing faintly in the darkness. You will leave this place, she said, her voice steady and clear. You will tell your masters that I died in the crash. The leader laughed. Or what? Your kind doesn't kill. You're healers, not fighters. True, Nara said. She stepped closer. But healing is about balance. Take too much life force, give too little back. She reached out and touched one of the men's arms. Her hand glowed intensely. The man screamed, dropping to his knees as energy visibly drained from his body. I won't kill, she said. But I can make you wish for death. The leader's confidence faltered. What do you want? The coordinates of where you're holding my people, Ree demanded. And your ship's access codes. You'll never get off-world, the leader spat. The Syndicate has eyes everywhere. Maybe, Ree said, aiming his pistol. But you'll never see what happens either way. Faced with Nara's power and their own vulnerability, the Syndicate men surrendered the information. 3 days later, Ree and Nara stood on a ridge overlooking the wasteland. Below them, the stolen Syndicate ship was prepped for launch. Are you sure? Nara asked. Your life is here. Ree looked around at the barren landscape. There's nothing for me here. There never was. The mission is dangerous, she warned. Many guards at facility where my people held. I know. Ree checked his weapons one last time. But no one deserves to be a prisoner. No one deserves to be alone. Nara reached out, taking his hand in hers. This time, there was no hesitation in her touch. Her fingers intertwined with his, warm, trusting. Not alone, she said softly. Not anymore. As the suns of Verox 9 began to set, casting long shadows across the wasteland, the ship rose into the darkening sky. Inside, a human who had lost everything and an alien who had survived the unimaginable set course for a dangerous rescue mission. It would not be easy. The Syndicate was powerful. The odds were against them. But for the first time in years, both Ree and Nara had something worth fighting for. Something more powerful than fear or pain or loss. Hope. And each other. The end.